Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Becky from Power Tools with Thread, and we are on week 9 of the Brightly Sampler block. And we're just moving right along here. I'm so happy about this. We've got 8 blocks done already. Let me pull them up here. There we go. My little scarecrow, he's kind of leaning a little bit, right? So this is pretty much the layout that Shirley Scott had done. The way I've got them set out here now. That's not the final layout. That's just to display the blocks. And if you are brand new, thank you so much for joining us. This quilt is from the Family Favorites book by Sherry and Chelsea. And we're doing a block a week for 20 weeks. It's got 20 blocks. Let me show you the final layout of the quilt right there. Okay, that looks great. So good to see everybody here in the chat. Oh my goodness, these are where my quilters come to hang out. There's a lot of folks in our Stitchuation room, which is a Monday through Friday virtual stitching retreat at 7 a.m. Central. That happens here live on the channel as well. But this is every Monday at 9 Central just to put these blocks together. So again, if you're new, hi, welcome. Let us know in the chat if you're brand new. And you can jump in at any time. There is a whole list of these blocks that I need to create a playlist, or I did create a playlist and I'll put them in there, something like that. But there are a total of 5 different blocks used 4 times. So instead of making 4 blocks at one go for a 4-week quilt along, I'm quilt witch. I just told my hubby, quit talking to me. I'm watching Becky. Leave me alone. Too funny. So, well, hello, Frito. You want to, this is not one of those. No, you've already had yours. My dog comes in there in the Stitchuation room. She gets a little treat. We don't do that on this one. Although I do have a swig of coffee for sure. Oh my goodness. T from Texas ordered the things above kit. You and a dozen other people. So good for you. I just did a check and there were only 9 left. So that is a beautiful quilt. I'm not doing a sew along with it on the channel, I don't think. But you've been snooping for a couple weeks, Cindy. So fun, and hope it gets your mojo back. That's what this is all about, getting your mojo back. So I know some of you lose your sojo, and that happens every once in a while. But the very best thing to do is set a timer for 20 minutes and just do something, okay? Whether you read a pattern book, or maybe you just cut, even if you don't feel like it, just cut. That's the very best thing, is to get the cutting done, because if your cutting's done, when you do feel like stitching something together, or you have a few minutes that you can get something taken care of, you can get in and stitch because it's already cut. That's my best productivity tip for quilting, is to just cut something. Okay. So I have a blog called powertoolswiththread.com, and there is a blog post on there for the Brightly Sampler quilt. It will give you our entire schedule. Let me see. I think I have it inside. I think I have them tucked up in here somewhere. Do I? They'll fall out. Yep. So here is Shirley Scott's layout. She's a member of our Facebook group, and she put that together. So that's kind of what I did. Oh, I got those other 2 backwards over there. No big deal. Again, Sharon says, Frito needs a treat. Not her waistline, you know. Let's see. Yesterday, she did get some Super Bowl stuff. And there's also a calendar, a schedule on the blog. If I can find it. I guess it's somewhere else. It has made its way somewhere else around the room here. Isn't that funny how that happens? It's been here the whole time. Oh, well. Not that big of a deal. So I'm just doing a block a week, and that's a really great way to keep the inertia of the quilting going. Okay. We just want to keep it going. Make a block a week, call it good, and move on to the rest of your life. And that's going to allow you that kind of a breather that you need. So you don't feel like every time you turn around that, it's always something you got to stitch, got to stitch, got to stitch, at least not for me. So, you get issues with what to do. So you end up cutting 20 fat quarter bundles into 2.5-inch strips. Okay, there's that. Why not? Yeah. I love a good jelly roll, 2.5-inch strips. Those I'm used to make, I call them cancer quilts. If anyone of my, in my surrounding gets sick, I know those rooms are very cold for treatment. And so I always whip up a jelly roll race real quick in a day. And I like to back it with Minky and then get that out to whoever needs it. So, all right. So I want to go ahead and get to this kaleidoscope block. So let's take a look at the block here. Okay. So we have A, B, C, D, and E, and F for our pieces. Okay. We got fresh coffee in the kitchen. Awesome. Jennifer, I appreciate you letting everybody know the virtual kitchen's alive and well here at the at our quilting retreat, our quilt along, right? So I've got all my pieces cut for this particular block. I'm using a design board from Fat Quarter Shop along with their alpha biddies. Okay. And my fabric is Sherry and Chelsea's strawberry lemonade. So these are all cut and ready to go. I have organized the quilt in a Yazzie bag using Easy Stacks. And so the entire quilt has been cut, and each set of blocks, like we are on the second of this particular one. So the Easy Stacks, I have these in my Amazon store, y'all. They're plastic trays, okay? And these are designed for paper, 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. So those are great because your pattern books will fit on here just fine. So I've got 2 left, and this is the Kaleidoscope block here. And you can see I wrote on the little label Kaleidoscope, okay? So everything is where it needs to be, okay? And that's the thing that can keep you going when it's time for you, you need to sew another block. It's already cut. I don't have to think. I just have to get my pieces set out and get to stitching. So that's how I'm keeping all of this one straight. I do that. I have a Yazzie bag for all of my quilt-alongs that I'm doing, all of my projects, and that way I can keep it straight. You're making this block. Awesome, Quilt Wench. Okay. You're attempting to fussy cut for the center. That's awesome. Also, along with this quilt, I am making what I call a companion quilt, and that is the same quilt in a different fabric line. Okay. So if you want to do that, if you've got a fat quarter bundle and some background fabric that will work, all right, then you can do that. So I'm using Farmstead here. This is the Kaleidoscope block, all right? Farmstead by Stacy East Shoe for Moda. So I'd like you to pay attention. Let me get this one. Want you to pay attention to how this is put together. She was talking about fussy cutting. Here, I have fussy cut the barns for the middle of the block. Okay. All right. And when we're putting these together, these are half square triangles right up here. There's a method to the madness. Somebody wrote me an email and said they're not going to fit together. Oh, they do. Just trust the process, you guys. But when we're putting together these flying geese blocks, so the flying geese block is this one right here. Okay. It's rectangular in shape, and it's got 2 little geese out on the side. Those are the wings. Notice that the long flat side of the geese block goes to the center, the long flat side. A lot of times you will see blocks where we've got the 1/4-inch seam point going to center. Not on this one. Okay. This Kaleidoscope block. So pay attention to that. That matters. By the time we get it all together, it'll be like putting together a 9 patch. So, which is pretty simple. We are going to use the sew and flip method on this. And just like every week, I'm going to be describing what I'm doing and why I'm doing it so that you guys can understand the concept of turn of cloth and get everything. You'll have your flying geese and your square and a square, both of which are in this block, and they will turn out right. Okay. So let me point this down. We're going to get to this right now. I'll point you down to my work area down here. And the first thing I want to do is create the square in a square block. So I'm going to take my square F, which is the center, okay, and squares D, and these are going to be the corners. So it's going to look like this. All right. This is where we're going with this. Okay. So whatever size this is right now, this is your base fabric. Okay. This is the base. So because we're adding fabric to it. So since this is the base, whatever size this is now, it needs to be the exact same size when we get finished adding fabric to it. All right. Okay. So I'm going to use a straight edge, and it doesn't matter what you use. And I'm going to flip these upside down. Also, I want to point out to you one quick thing. If you're going to be using a separate fabric line, you might notice that in the pattern, okay, this fabric and this fabric are the same. Oh, sorry. All right. This fabric and this fabric are the same. The C and D. Well, in this block on my companion quilt, I made them different. So you can do that too. You have permission. Knock yourself out. I thought that was really fun here in this to be able to do that. It turns it out very nice. Okay. Yeah, hit the like, everybody. I appreciate that very much. Okay. So let's get to making those corners for the square in the square. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to use a friction marker. I do not recommend friction pens. The friction pen is a gel and it can ghost. I don't recommend those, but the friction markers just iron away, no problem. And I need to jiggle my Oliso iron and get that working here. So you're going to take a straight edge, okay, and I'm going to put it corner to corner on the wrong side of the fabric. Now, if the straight edge is corner to corner, and you're going to draw a line, like right here, you're going to draw a line. So if the straight edge is corner to corner, the line is not. It's right next to corner, all right? Ruth, please don't give out, y'all, please don't give out cut sizes if you would. They have to buy the pattern to see the cut sizes. Just FYI, okay? Let's see here. Okay. There we go. Okay. So y'all just be mindful of designer integrity. No problem, Ruth. I got rid of it. You're good. You're good, sweetie. I know, everybody, we want to be so helpful, right? Okay. So I drew, if the ruler is corner to corner, the line is not, obviously. And so the piece that's hanging out that is on the outside of the ruler, I'm going to make a little mark on it, because with that line, it looks like it's corner to corner, but again, it is not. One side is larger than the other. The short side with the mark, that's the side that's going to be cut off. Okay. So I'm going to do that to all of these. Now, why am I doing that? All right. So if we sew on the line, this one, because it doesn't have a mark, it's the larger, as we fold it over to make the corner, the square in a square, you have enough room inside that line to fold. That is called turn of cloth in the garment sewing world. And nobody uses that here in the quilting world, but I thought I would share that with you guys. So look at this square right here. I've got a pretty little flower. I want to be mindful of that. I don't want to cut that off. I think that's pretty. So I'm going to put this other side and make it the one to cut off. You don't have to do that, but it's something you might consider if you've got really pretty fabric and you're like, oh, let me take that piece that doesn't have anything on it really. That'll be my short one. Okay. Okay. So on this one, I don't know that it matters much. We'll do this. And put this here like this. Okay. No, it's okay on that. They don't have the letters of what's what. So we're good. We're all good. Just like to be mindful of cut amounts. We don't share that. I see that in the Facebook group too. I'll go in and cut those out and delete those. So not a big deal. All right. Okie doke. There we go. Y'all, I was doing one of these this weekend, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get it to fold right and iron cleanly and not be wonky. I couldn't get it. It was driving me crazy on one of those blocks. And so I went and measured it. Don't you know, I was 1/4 inch off on one side. It was too big, 1/4 inch too big on one side. I said, dang it. So I had to go back and fix that, take it off and trim them down. At least it wasn't too small, right? Okay, so I have all of these now. Now what we're going to do, again, the piece with the mark is the piece you're going to cut off. Why mark these? Isn't it easy enough to see the line? Depends on how good your eyes are. But when you're doing a whole bunch of these at one time, like I have marked 50 to 100 of these at any given quilt. So when you get them all stacked up, because you do all your marking at one time, okay, when you get them all stacked up, the odds of you getting it wrong or right are 50%. Those are bad odds. Don't do that. Okay. All righty. So let's get going here. So I'm going to put my block, my background fabric is going to be right side up. I'm going to put some glasses on my head so I can see what I'm doing. And I want to take these squares that are going to be make the square in a square. I'm going to align it exactly with the base fabric, with the background. Maintain the integrity of the base shape. So you should not see this. See how you can see the red outside of that? That's a no-no. You don't want that. Okay. These are right side together, and you don't want it short. Okay. You want it to be correct. Maintain the integrity of the base shape. And what that means is that when you look at it from the front or back, you do not see the other fabric from the other side. Okay. And now I'm going to sew on the line, corner to corner, and maintain the integrity of the base shape. Now I see quilters do this all the time. And I don't know how they do it, but they manage to do this and not get it wonky. Okay, so there's one. And then you want to put the other one on the opposite side of the block. Why? Because we're going to make a 1/4 inch seam up here on one side. So I'm putting the piece with the mark to the outside. That's the piece that's going to be cut off. And now I'm sewing on the line. Okay, so there we go. And that's what we want. That looks good. I've maintained the integrity of the base shape. You cannot tell. There's other fabric from the back, and you don't see the base fabric coming through on the front. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this point and I'm going to fold it up and over until it meets exactly. I want it to meet exactly on that point. So again, we're maintaining the integrity of the base shape. I can't see it. If it looks like that, you have a problem. And what'll happen is it'll get a wonky fold down here, and you'll see this back fabric. You'll see the back side of that piece come through. That's wrong. That's what I was doing the other day, and I couldn't figure out what was making me crazy. It was because my piece wasn't cut properly. This is what it should look like, side to side and on the point. So I've maintained the integrity of the base shape. So now that I've got that, then what I do is just hold on to that point, and I'm going to finger crease it. And I want it to be exact on that edge, as exact as possible. Okay. Fabric it moves, and that happens. And we're going to do both of them. Okay. Oh man, I don't have my seam roll over here. I need to get that. I don't have my seam roll. My little one is up there on the sewing table, my pressing station. Hold on a second. I've got a clapper here. I don't have the seam roll. I apologize. I thought I had all my stuff together today. That's all right. So what I got going on here, this is the Aliso M3 Pro iron. I've recently started using this. I am an affiliate for Aliso. If you get one, I have a link below. The FCC is making me say that kind of thing. So I just got to let you guys know. I am so thrilled to be a representative for Aliso. It's just, this is a fantastic little iron. Absolutely love it. I could give or take or leave the big one. Just honest, you know, they don't pay my salary. So, but this little one, I love this thing because I picked this up at Road to California. I got to tell you guys, this thing is so cool. If you leave it sitting down, it has a 10-minute timer. But if you stand it up on its end on the butt down here, it has a 30-minute timer. So it'll stay on for a long time. It's awesome. And if you're a lefty, which is very cool, my mother's a lefty. If you're a lefty, this piece right here, see that little gray piece right there? That can come off and flip around. So you can have the cord coming out the other side. How handy is that? That's awesome. This thing gives a great burst of steam. It's got its little headlight on here, which is so cute. I just love it. I'm loving it. I was using the Cricut iron. It was okay. I had them fail. So I have high hopes for this one. I thought it might have been my electric in my room, but it wasn't. It was the iron. So I don't use steam, you guys. Are my vintage Christmas blocks 6 inches or bigger? Maggie, the vintage Christmas blocks are supposed to finish at 6 inches. I have had to block a couple of them to get them, which means get them super wet and pat them, set them to 6 inches, get them super wet and pat them and let them dry. So that has happened. But it's just like 6 1/4. They're not, it's fine. Okay, so now that I've got this pressed, you always press first. Now I'm going to trim off those underneath those bottom 2 pieces. So we're going to cut that off at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. Don't leave those on. I see people do that all the time. It never occurred to me to tell people to cut those off. There goes my seam roll. Until I watched somebody sew them into her quilt. And I said, why didn't you cut those off? She goes, why should I? Bulk. That's why. Okay. So, I take my cute new little Kimberly's color set. My little mat here. And I've got the small rotary cutter. Hush. That is so rude. Dental appointment reminder. Okay. Okay. And the second one. So I'm not sure. I see like Pat Sloan and Lori Holt. I see them cut and then fold and iron. Or cut and then iron. And I'm like, well, how do you know the square's right? I don't know how they do that. I haven't figured that out. It's, you know, maybe they got some kind of magic going on or something. I don't know. Okay. So here we are. Remember I told you this square, your base shaped square. Well, hi, Carla. Welcome to the chat. your base shape square is still the exact same size as it was when I started. I've maintained the integrity of the base shape. I'm going to say that a million times. Okay. All right. So we're ready to do the other two corners now. And I'm going to put the piece with the mark to the outside. I almost did it wrong, but I can see that little mark. So I know with the mark, it's going to go. That's the side that's going to be cut off. That's always nice to do when you're kind of fussy marking your blocks like I just did. Okay. Sew on the line. And the second one. So now because we did these on opposite corners, we're getting our 1/4 inch seam in the center of the square. Just pull this up. Watch, don't iron your hand, y'all. Oops. There we go. And this turned out perfect. This is so important to get your 1/4 inch seams. There's nothing worse than working on a block and then you look and you have non-existent seams here on the side where it's supposed to be a 1/4 inch, but it's not. That is so frustrating when that happens. All right. So I'm going to trim these. I've forgotten to trim these before, you guys. I have. If you want, you can sew another seam because we have quite a bit of fabric here. If you want, you can sew another seam a 1/2 inch away from your first one and then cut it in between those two seam lines. And that will give you a little 1/2 square triangle to play with if you want to save scraps. That would be a good way to make, you know, now that I think about it, we were talking about making the little quilted magnets this morning, a tutorial by Corey Yoder. That would make cute little 2.5 inch squares for those magnet pockets, wouldn't it? They'd already be pieced. That is so smart. I amaze myself sometimes. That's a good idea. I'm going to do that on the next blocks, my next blocks that I have. Okay, so all done with our square and a square. And the size that it started at, okay, let me measure, is still the size that it is now. So that's great. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the side. This is done. All right. Now let's make our 1/2 square triangles for the 4 corners. Okay. So on here, I'm going to take the 2 A squares and I'm going to flip them over onto the back. And the directions say to draw a line down the center and then stitch a 1/4 inch away from each side of the line. I don't like that. I prefer to use a 1/4 inch seam guide. Okay. And I put the seam guide corner to corner diagonally on the square. And then draw the sewing line, not where you get to guess if your foot is actually a 1/4 inch away. Whoop, let me put this over here. Now, draw the sewing line. It is much more accurate. There's a reason they make this ruler. Okay, and then this one. Now I'm going to do some assembly line sewing on these and stitch them at the same time. It makes for quick work of our 1/2 square triangles. Okay. And if you want, it's really a lot better to sew just inside of that line. That's going to give you a little bit more wiggle room for trimming. Okay, so I'm going to put this on. Let me see here. I'm going to get my 3.5-inch square up ruler. That makes my life easier to have that. Again, don't have my stuff together here. That is right here in this little bag where I keep these. Okay. Sorry about that. This is from Creative Notions Quilt Shop, 3.5-inch square ruler. Love these. These are just my favorite. I have a lot of different ones, but you guys get whatever you like, okay? Acrylic is crazy expensive, so get whatever you like. Let's see here. Okay. How do I want these cut? Let's see. All right. Again, maintaining the integrity of the base shape. They're the same size. There we go. So assembly line sewing. I'm going to stitch with the edge of the foot on the line instead of sewing on the line. And that's going to give me a little bit more room for trimming. And I'm going to get a more accurate block that way. Another thing you can do is always trim your blocks a little bit larger just to start with. Those pieces that you see are going to be half square triangles. You can add in your pattern, you can add 1/4 inch to them, and you will get a more accurate block by trimming them down. Okay, there we go. So I've done some assembly line sewing there. Okay, cool. And now when I do a whole bunch of these at one time, like when we were doing the Happy Dance block, I just set those, I lay them all out on my cutting table and off I go and just do it like this all the way down and just trim all the way down like that. Okay. So I did them all at one time. That was pretty cool. Okay, there we are. Okay, so now I want to press these, and I'm going to flip them over so the dark side is up. So I can press to the dark. So I'll just flip these open and just finger press first. Now, if you haven't used a clapper before, these are fairly new. They've only been used in the quilting world for a couple of years now, maybe 4 or 5, but they've been used in tailoring, garment making for centuries. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time to mash it down, okay? It just a couple of seconds. There's magic in heat with the natural fibers of the wood and the wool and the cotton. And it just makes a beautiful flat seam, which I prefer to pressing my seams open. I'm not a fan of pressing my seams open. I know some of you, that's like scandal and you'll clutch your pearls, but open seams are weak seams because all that's holding it together is the thread, okay? And if you're using a cotton thread, it's even worse. At least I use a poly, but I just don't care for that. It's harder to nest when you don't have a folded seam. So this is just me, and it's done me fine for a decade. It's done me fine. Okay. Awesome. Now I need to trim these to 3.5. Now, if you don't have a rotary mat, you can use a mat on a mat, okay, which is what I'm doing here. And now I'm just going to align my square up ruler with each corner. It's really important to get the lines on the diagonal line on the ruler even with the diagonal line on the block. Okay, so that it's the same. That's going to give you those pretty sharp points that are two different color fabrics. So because I sewed inside of the seam of the drawn line just a tiny bit, look how I have a little bit of fabric all the way around. I just put the edge of my foot right on that drawn line. And that's going to give me the extra bit of fabric all the way around that I need. Now the ruler looks a little foggy because I have ODIF grippy on the back of the ruler, and that keeps it from moving around. If you ever have rulers that have that slide around on you. And now I'm just going to move the mat and not the fabric. Okay. Keep your fingers away from the edge. Okay. And here you go. We have a beautiful 3.5-inch block. It said to trim to 3.5. See how the points are perfect. That's what you're after for your half-inch triangle, half square triangles. Is that okay? Next. Everybody line up. All right, get that line on there exactly. Make sure I have fabric all the way around. That looks perfect. Okay. And turn. There's two. This is so fun. Oh my gosh, I really appreciate you guys joining me. So fun to do this. Haven't even turned on the TV yet today. It's been so nice. Make sure I get that seam. Yeah, I have a plan today to stitch another vintage Christmas. That is on the agenda for the day. I actually have a teleconference, like a video chat with a company called ID Me. They are a in the world of cybersecurity, it's called authentication. They're an authentication company for veterans and first responders. And I used them years ago. I use it on my phone and on websites. And so I used them years ago to buy an NFL jersey. When J.J. Watt was playing for the Texans, I had to have a J.J. Watt jersey, you know, because J.J. Watt, right? So I used them then, and then I've used them again since then. And the other day I had to log into the VA for a claim I've got going. And when you go, I know we're not talking about quilting now. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. This is my life. Okay. So if you want to go in through what they call DS logon or all of these other things, well, since I'm retired, your user ID and password expires every 90 days or something crazy like that. So you have to reset it all the time. Well, if you use ID Me, it's ID.me, ID Me. So if you use ID Me, the phone is actually also using the authentication and the face recognition, and it just clicks through and bang, and I get a little smile and it knows it's me and life is good. So I did that and it worked out fine. Well, then I got an email from ID Me and they said, hey, we saw you used our product and we'd like to, do you want to do a survey? And I said, sure, I'll do your survey. So I did the survey and they said, do you know of anywhere else that you could use ID Me that you're not? And my suggestion there was McDonald's drive-through, right? Because at my McDonald's, there are all those franchises are individually owned. Well, my McDonald's offers a military discount, but I can't use it with the app, the military discount, which is 15%. I can't use it with the app because they don't, Debbie. Oh, that's a good question, Debbie. Anyway, because they don't use ID Me. So it doesn't know that I'm a veteran. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that today. Great question, Debbie. Just started to cut your pieces. How do I determine whether to use the fat quarter or the fat eighth? What you can do, you really need to figure out if you're going to need a whole bunch of that fabric in the quilt, that particular fabric. Okay. If you're not going to need a whole bunch of that fabric in the quilt, use the fat quarter for the one that you're going to use more of. Okay. Yeah. Otherwise it doesn't matter. Okay. So I've got a little telecom with those people today. That should be interesting. All right. So here are my 4 half square triangles right there. And they're all perfect and they're ready to go on the flying geese blocks that we are about to build. All right. So here we go again with flying geese. So these are the background fabric. Remember, we're going to maintain the integrity of the base shape. This is the base shape because we're adding fabric to it. Okay. So I'm going to come up here now. This background, I need to mark all 8 of these. And here we go again. I'm going to make sure. Yep. So normally I will use a black light to see white on white fabric and make sure, but this particular line doesn't show well one side to the other. So I'm going to go through here and mark all of these. That's the piece I'm going to cut off. So just go through and do all of this. So some people are a little leery of those online authentication things. And I worked in cybersecurity for the Air Force for 17 years. And I understand that technology and how that works. And so I was totally fine doing that. So and they've integrated the VA and there's another veterans. I don't think my pay is using it yet. I don't think they are. So is Dave here? Dave, do you use ID Me? I love it. So easy. Dave was in the Air Force too. All right. Let's see. I got 3 more. Capri. What is that? We're not getting snow here in South Texas. It's in the high 40s right now, going to be high of 58. Tomorrow we'll have a high of 74. will be 80 by Wednesday. Let's see here. Now I'm going to use the exact same concept to make these flying geese that I did on the square and a square. That's that sew and flip, but take into consideration the turn of cloth and maintain the integrity of the base shape. So the ruler is corner to corner, so the line is not, and I'm going to sew on the line and cut off the piece with a little mark. All right. So now, here we go again. Now, if you have directional fabric, all right, pay attention and make sure that one of these, you'll make it upside down, and that'll go on the bottom. And let me show you what I'm saying, what I mean about that. Let's see, that's not a good one. This one's real good. This one here, you can see. Okay, so here's the top of the block, directional fabric. So my sheep is straight up, and the ones on the middle, in the middle, the sheep are on the side, not a big deal. But here at the bottom, I didn't pay attention to that, and my chicken's upside down. Okay, so if you have directional fabric, one of these, sew it upside down, one of the base shapes. Okay. FYI. Lesson learned, right? I don't have directional fabric on this one. Okay, so again, I'm going to put it on there exactly. I don't have anything hanging over from either side. And I'm going to sew on the line, and I'm going to assembly line sew all of these at one time. And get them all done here. And why? Because we need that 1/4 inch seam. And if you sew this one, then this one, and then try to cut them, it's not going to work. Also, if you have directional fabric, make sure, my first ones I did, I had it kind of upside down. And number 4. And y'all, it does not matter if you sew middle to point, point to middle. It doesn't matter. Not a big deal. Just so long as in the end, you've got a geese. Okay. I'm going to fold this up so it matches. Lay it out here. Finger press. The points, make sure my points are perfect. Making sure you have perfect points is how you get that good 1/4 inch seam. Notice I didn't cut them apart. This helps to keep everything, it's much more efficient not to cut them apart until you're all finished. All right. Got stuff going on the bias here. Last one. All right. All right, good. And now I guess I should, I want to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and sew that other line. I want to make those little magnets that Corey Yoder was making. So I'm just going to sew 1/2 inch away, right? Let's see. How am I going to do this? Right there. Where am I going to put this thing? I guess it doesn't matter. About like that. Okay. It doesn't have to be an exact 1/2 inch. Thereabouts. Because I want to play with those little magnets. I was going to make an embroidery design to figure out and then get them stitched on the embroidery machine. If you wonder what I'm talking about, Corey Yoder put a video out yesterday with a tutorial on how to make her little quilted magnets. So cute. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to cut between those lines. I could use a ruler, Dave. I know. Use your ruler. I actually used my diagonal seam tape. Okay. I'm going to keep that instead of throwing it away. That's not my norm. I usually will go ahead and just toss the extra fabric. I just don't want to manage it. Did I get that? Okay. Cut. Erg. Sometimes, usually I'm pretty quick with a rotary cutter, but sometimes it just holds me back. You know, gosh. We've got, we had a space open up in our RV Sew Together in September. So if anybody else wants to go, one of our folks had a wedding they've got to go to that popped up. So she had to cancel, which I totally get. So we've got one extra space. We filled up in 4 days. So just FYI. All right. I forgot to mention that this morning. All right. Now I'm ready for the other one. So again, I'm going to put this so that the mark is on the corner that's going to be cut off. Okay. I want to sew this way. This makes me happy. You might need to use leaders and enders if you start on a point. I don't have to do that with this machine. Some machines you do. I had a guild reach out to me yesterday. They want me to come and do a snapplique demo. So I'm going to do that probably in September. I got to send them my email and all that stuff and what's included, what's involved, contract, blah, blah, all that stuff. So that'll be down near Houston. And the last one. Whoops, wrong. Okay. Make sure I put that on there right so that I've got that 1/4 inch seam. All right. And now I'm going to sew, where's my snips? That other line again. Okay. Yeah, on the magnets, I planned on creating an embroidery design and then doing them in multis on the multi-needle. I think that'll be cool. Okay. So this is the new little block. How cute. Oh, I forgot to fold it and measure it first and iron it. See, that's where I don't know how these people do that. I was looking at that going, that looks strange. Right. So, see, this is what I'm talking about. If you cut first before you fold, where does this go? And the odds of getting it right that's difficult. So I'm going to be very careful about my finger pressing. I want my corners to be right. Yeah. I see them do this all the time, and I'm like, I don't know how y'all do that. Because you're folding and pressing on the bias. So it's very difficult to get it straight. Now, one thing you can do to figure out if you got it straight or not is to put it on a mat, ruler mat, and look. And that is straight, but I don't recommend that method at all. It is much more accurate to fold it first, okay, and get that point exactly where it needs to go. Much more accurate to do it like this. I used to do it that old method because I'd seen people do it like that. And I'm like, how come my blocks never come out straight? That doesn't make any sense to me. Drove me nuts until I figured it out. Press first. All right. And one more. I got so excited about making that other block. Okay. And now I can trim them. Cut in the middle. Okay. 3 more. How can you get the wood block to iron on? That is a seam roll. I have it listed below in the description box. They are from Gray Rooster, and they are the best in the industry. Very nice man. He lives in Fort Worth, and he makes exceptional tailor's tools. So I like them because they're small, you know, fits in my little ironing station here. Okay. So now essentially we're going to do a 9 patch, and let me show you what I mean by that. Get my alphabetties out of the way. Now, what I recommend you do when you get to this point is you're going to go ahead and lay everything out on the design board. The color on your corner points goes to the inside. If you have directional fabric on these, you might want to pay attention to which way that's going, okay? Because you folded it. So we're going to do this. So the color goes to the inside, all right? And then on this, don't forget, I mentioned it right at the beginning, that the long side of the flying geese goes to the square and a square in the center. So not like this. A lot of times you'll see them like this with this point to the inside. No, we want the long side to the inside. So this makes it a lot easier. And we essentially have a 9 patch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Easy peasy. See that? Beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to stitch 2, 2, 2, and then the last one. And that's how I do my 9 patches. Okay. So I'm going to just put these together like this. All right. And again, make sure your edges are even. Okay. And I do recommend pinning on the bottom edge. I just like to do that. It keeps the bottom fabric from being pulled through faster by the feed dogs. Okay. And on this one, I want to make sure that I hit right there. I don't want to tip that, and I don't want to be short, right? So I'm going to put this on. Okay. And now I'm going to flip it over so I'm not sewing blind. And that makes sense. You can take a pin and go through right on that point. And then I'm going to take my marker, okay, and I'm going to put a little mark right where the pin came out. And there's my spot that I want to hit. Don't sew blind if you can avoid it. You're going to be a lot more accurate that way. Okay. I want to hit that point, that mark. There we go. And then this one. Now, this is just me, but when I press my rows, I press even rows one way and odd rows the other way. And that makes a pretty nest. So let's do the other block first. Notice I don't use this up here. I don't do that because you get a big tug on the fabrics. And if you've got a bias piece like these flying geese, you can tug it, or your half square triangles, you can make them wonky. And I don't want to do that. So, okay. Let's put this on. Again, the color goes to the inside. Okay. And I'm going to pin these bottom edges. When I'm talking you through it, it takes a bit, but I can knock one out in about 25 minutes. Okay. Now this side, the other one goes on there. And I want to mark my point. Let's make sure the first one worked out first. It worked out perfect. Exactly. That's what I want. It's exactly what I want right there. Okay. Put that on, flip it over, mark my point. Not tipped, not too far away. Pin these edges together. Sometimes this fabric does not want to lay flat. I don't know why. Wants to be all kind of wonky. Makes me crazy. Do as you are told. Sometimes I don't have control over much in my life, but by golly, I want control over my fabric. And the last one. Color to the inside. Yeah, just like that. Okay. Okay. So rows 1 and 3, I'm going to press with the seam allowances going outward so that they lay like that. Okay. Seam allowances outward. And this one will be seam allowances towards center. Okay. Where am I taking orders for the ruler holder? Shelly, that's on powertoolswiththreadstore.com. And there is a black box when you go onto the ruler page itself. There's a black box that says notify me when it's available, and you need to fill that out. He's only making 10, and we've already got 25 people have that pre-order notification done. And what happens is as soon as he loads them on the store site, your email will get a notification, and you need to keep an eye on your email because those things will sell out within an hour. Okay. Just FYI, or quicker. Everybody loves them to death. So as soon as they get temperatures above freezing where the glue will set and cure, they will be finished and go on the store site. I know he's making more. My son makes these ruler racks up here on my wall. I know he's making more there. And, but he took a hiatus from making them for about 2 years because he was working on his PhD. He just finished. All right, there we go. So I've sewn the seam allowances toward the outside. What are you doing? What is that about? No. Do we not have a... No, that's okay. Press. Go that way. There you go. Okay. And then this one is seam allowances to the inside. Let me just set this and then flip it. Oh, that's pretty. Pretty. When we get finished putting this whole thing together, we'll go over to my big ironing board. And then I've got more space over there for the big long seams. The block press isn't coming up. Julie, it's in below. It's below in the description box around my sewing room. I think that's there. If not, I'll put it there. But it says seam roll and baby clapper. Okay. This is beautiful. Doesn't that turn out pretty? Look at that. Just gorgeous. Okay. So now, again, use your design board, okay, and lay it out so you don't get your rows flipped. So if you have it like this, that's wrong. You want all the color to the inside. Okay. All the color. The link isn't working for the pressing bar, L. Okay. I will look at it after I get done here. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay. So now I'm going to nest. I've got a video below on the basics of nesting. And what I do is I'm just going to look and peek and make sure. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use a pin and go through with the point. Okay. And then go in the point on this side. And I want to nest these super tightly together. And then I'm going to hold that pin diagonally like that. Okay. I'm sorry, horizontally. Hold the pin horizontally. So I know that those points are together now. And now I'm going to pin in one side of the seam allowance and out the other on the diagonal. And look at that. Those are off. Doesn't matter. I'm going to mark my point. I'm pretty sure that's right. Pretty sure that's right. Pull the pin. Okay. Because sometimes when it gets folded, it gets off. I don't know why, it just does. Okay. Get those seam allowances nested nice and tightly together. In one side of the seam allowance, out the other. This is where sometimes I have to redo it on this one. We'll give it a go and see. Oh, and my bottom edge. Okay. All right. I'm going to start. Now, I want to give you a little tip if you're new to quilting. When you start a row, start it on the 1/4 inch. If you have to go wider than a 1/4 inch to hit a point sometimes, you might have to do that. But be sure to end at a 1/4 inch. And what that does is it keeps the outside edges of the quilt block the right size, and you can manipulate the fabric on the inside with steam. You can bend it to your will if you have to. Sometimes things just go wonky. I get that. It sounds like I don't have a bobbin. I don't. I'm out. Ah! Next. I gave my machine some love the other day. I got in there and cleaned it out and did some oiling. Okay. All right. Always listen to your machine. That'll prevent you from ghost sewing. Not that I would know anything about that. When you pin at a diagonal from bottom to top, right to left, it allows you to go over that seam that you've pinned and anchored a couple of stitches and then pull the pin. If you go straight, it can wobble around. So I'm not a fan of straight pinning. Let's see what happened. I'm so off, it's not even funny. I totally have to redo that. I want you to see that. Look. Can you see how bad that is? Look how bad that is. That is completely unacceptable. Those two white pieces should be together. Elle, my shirt says I'm not sewing with a full bobbin. And this is a mess. One hot mess. That I got pretty close. So they are under sewing room. They're sold separately. Yeah. So I need to unstitch this. I'm very disappointed. Y'all, I went through this yesterday quite a bit. This particular block is a bit of a pickle. And that's unacceptable to me. I won't leave it. I won't leave it. Okay. Be careful when I get to the intersection here. Other times what I have done is just said, okay, just trust my 1/4 inch seam and go with it, right? Yeah, that's way off. I won't even. Best laid plans. Okay. So now what am I going to do? I got to make these match. I'm just going to nest them together again. Give it another shot. Hit that point. Okay. It's the white, it's that background fabric that's got to go together. When you've got 4 pieces that have to come right at the same all the time, it makes it really hard to get those all to line up. And, you know, they're all on the bias. They are hard to get perfect quilting on. I know. How do I insert that bobbin case so easily? Girl, I've been doing it for ever, a decade. There we go. Let's try it again. A couple of times yesterday, after the third time, I said, that's it, I'm done. And I just quit. I said, it is what it is, and it's going to be what it is. I'm not even going to fiddle with it. You get to that point. Plus, you get to where you start making the fabric really weak. All right, let's see. Better, but not good. Oh my gosh, horrible. This is bad. Oh my gosh, y'all. Look at that. Terrible. Look how bad that is. I don't know if I'm going to finish this block with you guys today. Oh my goodness. This was the block that gave you the most problems. I know. This seam ripper needs a little. Yeah, this one, man. Y'all are laughing at me. It's fine. At least you're laughing with me. You wait till your turn comes around. This is so hard. I thought the happy dance was hard. No. This one is much sharper. Got to slow down at those intersections. And then it's really funny. I do the other side and get it right the first time. No problems. Man, that turned out so bad. So sometimes you have to go, okay, why? I mean, why did it turn out so bad? What happened? What's wrong with the points that they're not meeting? Is there something I could do to the blocks to, reshape them or something like that? My points are all right. Take a breath. Patience is a virtue, right? That's what they tell us. That's what they tell us. I was better when I was pinning my points together. I'm going to my mark. I need to get rid of my iron marks. Let's see here. Get rid of that. There. Make new iron marks. So I'm not confused. All right, there's one, right? Okay. I'm going to go in on this point right there. And in on this point right here. All right. I'm going to pin it on both sides of the seam allowance. In the front and the back where I matched those white points. We'll see if that method works. So now what I have is a pin marking the white points, okay? And I've got it pinned on either side of the seam allowance. Patience is a virtue that takes practice. Yeah. So come out here on that point. It's the background fabric that you really notice if it's not correct. Okay, so that's right. And now I'm going to go on the point, okay, and mark that right there on that point. The problem is sometimes too, when you do this, then your nest isn't tight. And then you have a little gap there. And that is yesterday where on all those other blocks I did on the companion quilt, where I said a stitch, half a stitch, I'm not doing it. I just left it. And you really couldn't tell. Okay. Okay. All right. We'll try it again. Third time's a charm, right? Isn't that what they say? You wonder if it would help if I sewed from the middle out? Possibly. I'm also going to stabilize the middle. I'm going to come through. Let me mark that point on the back where that fabric is right there. Hit that. Okay. Here we go. Start your engines. Let's see if this works. Very careful. I got to go over a pin. Ah, dang it. Bent it. Okay, here we go. I watched a Craftsy class one time, and this lady was sewing a button-down shirt. She always sewed over her pin. She'd just slow way down. I was like, ain't no way. I hate doing that. Okay. Well, I'll call it a win. I'll call that a win. Okay. Yeah. So I know you do. Yeah, Barbara, you're right. You notice the mistake when the two fabrics contrast each other. So when this is pressed out, and I even hit that center just perfect as well. Yahoo! Yeah, ta-da! Yay! I only really get a ta-da on the first time. All right. And now I'm going to do this. So I'm going to go through the same agony again to mark the point from the back first. Okay. And leave that pin in there, both of these. Okay. This block. Okay. So now in here on the point, and then put it in right on the point of the other one. Nest them up tight. Hold the pin horizontal and pin on both sides of the seam. There's all these little pinning tricks, and sometimes you have to go through a couple of them to see which one is going to work. See, I can tell that that nest is not close enough together. There we go. Ah! Ah! My pin fell out. Well, I've got it marked. We'll see. Okay. So in right here, on that point, in right here, on the point, hold it horizontal, get them nested tightly, and pin on both sides of the seam. I can hear airplanes flying overhead from Randolph Air Force Base. Okay. And I'll mark it from the back here. Find that point. Get that straight. Okay. Alrighty, mark that. I'm going to stabilize the center so it doesn't move around. Get in there. Okay, and pin my bottom edge. Okay. Pin, 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 pin. Here we go. Last seam, cross your fingers. Aiming for that mark. Okay. Yeah, sewing 4 of these yesterday was a real joy, believe me. All day. All right. Drum roll, y'all. It's a little off on that bottom one. See that? But I think I might leave it. That one's great. Ta-da! I don't know. This one I might have to go back and just kind of look a little bit. But from here, it looks good. If I put my nose up in it, I'm not happy. But I can see where that's disjointed right there. But this one, see, you're also looking for this line right here. You want that line straight. And if it's broken, that's where you can really tell. Everybody says, I can live with that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Sometimes too, you can iron it a different direction and it will hide that. So I'm not going to be able to hide that. That disjointed joint right there will bother me. I'll take it apart and fix it. But all right, you guys, this has been a lot of fun. Well, till right at the end there. Creative pressing. Yeah, Sally, I want you to be able to see what it's like. I mean, you know, even very seasoned quilters still struggle. Sometimes fabric just has a mind of its own. It does what it wants. But anyway, so, all right. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining me. So after I press this out, this one is going right there. Yay. Okay. Just needs pressed out. Looks amazing. Yay. How pretty, right? How pretty. Ta-da. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to give a thumbs up. If you're watching on your couch, grab that TV remote and hit the channel up button. That gives me a thumbs up and I appreciate it. I won. Yeah. I will see you guys tomorrow morning in the Stitchuation Room. I hope this inspires you to get something cut and get it under your needle and get stitching, okay? We will talk to you soon. Love you guys. See you next week on the Brightly Sampler too. Bye.